always been his mother's favorite. But that night, he woke up to find the swan had disappeared. So he took his mother's silver paintbrush and followed the footprints into a little door he hadn't seen before.
So the game begins with a completely white screen, and we find players usually spend about 5 seconds or so waiting for the game to tell them what to do. And then they get bored and they start pressing some buttons. And they can hear the players start to move around and jump. And then they get even more bored and start pressing all the buttons. And then they eventually hit the triggers and fire the black pigtails. Like I said, it takes usually about 5 seconds, although we have seen it take up to 2 minutes for a player to get that bored and begin pressing buttons. Because at this point, gamers are used to the game laying out exactly what the game is about and what they have to do with players. And this game goes in the opposite direction. So it's a game about exploration, and we wanted players to feel like they were exploring not only the world, like physically exploring it, but then also exploring the game itself and figuring out, as they play the game, what sort of a game and what sort of a world this is going to be. So we start off with a very abstract space. In the beginning, it's all solid lines and kind of boxy room, and eventually we layer in a bit more of a natural environment. So players realize that they're not on the moon here; they're in like a forest, basically. And everything initially is very static, and now we start to see the world is actually a little bit more alive than players might have initially expected. This is the first creature the players see is a frog that ends up being eaten by the second creature that the players see. And for inspiration for the game, we looked to a lot of storybooks. So we wanted to create this experience that would evoke a sense of awe and wonder, and found that the things that did that the best for us were like Alice in Wonderland particularly, and then also to some extent Edward Gorey and Shel Silverstein and a bit of Jim Henson. And one of the things that they all had in common was this sense of a darker world that was not entirely safe for children, going back to like even Grimm's fairy tale. And that's something that we tried to keep alive in the world. So even though it does have this kind of light fairy book tone, or fairy tale tone, there are a lot of things in the world that are not necessarily pleasant. There are lots of ways for the players to die in some gruesome ways, but it's all relatively painless for players. So we wanted players to keep exploring the world. And so we did things like not limiting the number of paintballs the players had, so that even though the world may occasionally push back, players were always in the mindset of exploring and feeling like it was okay to try things out, that the game was going to reward exploration and curiosity rather than punish them for it. So this is the first time that players are going to encounter the king. And this is the statue that the king has created himself. Not a very shy man. He has a magic paintbrush and can create basically whatever he wants, which ends up being a bit of a curse because he creates a lot of unfinished things, constantly moving on to the next thing. And as players are moving through the world, they're exploring a bit of the king's life. So they're seeing the things that the king created as a young man, like this elaborate sort of statue garden that they're in now, and there's a labyrinth coming up later. And as they move through the game, they're going to see the king as a more middle age, and eventually as an old man, the kinds of work as an artist that he's created. And this is the first moment that players have to look back over where they've come in the game and see all the stuff that they've splattered. And it turned out to be a surprisingly emotional moment for players that really speaks to the kind of player that they are. We found that everyone plays the game a little bit differently. So like hardcore players may start off and within a couple seconds of figuring out that they can do something, their first instinct to try and do is destroy as much of it as possible. So they just start spamming balls everywhere, where other players will be much more selective. And they'll carefully, artfully, basically try to throw as few balls as possible to make the world a little less messy when they're done with it. And so when players have a chance to look back over where they've come, it's a surprisingly personal thing, where they can see the areas where they may have gotten stuck, for example, and it'll be all black in an area. This red balloon is the first balloon that the player finds in the game, which are collectibles that are scattered around the world. one of the things we tried to do in the very beginning of the game was to do away with as many conventions as we could in typical games to make something that is very unlike a normal game, and we failed in no perfect sense, like having collectibles in the game, but ultimately we found that it was something that provided a lot of really useful advantages for players. Like gives a way to add a bit more life to the world,
The
so
king
that
tried
instead of
every
having
color
a
there
white
was.
space, we were able to
He even created a
sprinkle
couple of
new
brand new
balloons,
colors,
and then also
but nothing felt right for
gave
his
players a
garden.
reason for
While
exploring
behind
places
it,
that
his
might
kingdom began
otherwise not
attracting
have gone
settlers,
down.
and he soon found himself
Storybooks
with
that are
bigger
scattered around the
kingdoms.
world give players a little bit more backstory. The king and the world that the king has created. And initially we expected that they'd be about a hardcore thing, like the audio logs in the game that will tell you about the failed experiments that's, day 37 of the experiment or whatever. And it turned out to be something that almost every player that we see gravitates towards because the game is so minimalistic that every little detail that we put became hugely important for players. So that's the first area of the game, and then we're going to jump